2-minute warning. Your bets this morning. It's just lady council Perthes. I think yeah. Great speeches. I can just Morning, everybody. Welcome to UTRCA September 23rd, 2025 board meeting. Welcome board members, staff members, guests attending here today, as well as welcome to the public that may be tuning in online as well. As a reminder, Emily Chandler is serving as our meeting host. So if those of you online have connection problems or issues with technology, please contact Emily through the chat feature. Today's meeting is being live streamed on the UTRCA's YouTube channel. Please refrain from whispering or side conversation while the meeting is running, as they could get picked up by the microphones. When the squares glow red, the microphones are muted. If you're a board member attending online, please have your camera on during the meeting, especially during voting and during our closed session, which we will have later today. Noting the start time of our meeting as 9:30. Regrets have been received from board member Sandy Levin, and please note that councillors Peter Cuddy, Anna Hopkins, Harge, and Skylar, they will be attending online today. So with that, I will read our territorial acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the Upper Thames River watershed is within the traditional territory of the Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Muna-Piwa peoples, who have deep, long-standing and intrinsic relationships to the land, water, plants, and animals of southwestern Ontario. We acknowledge the First Nation communities within the Thames River watershed who are connected to and by the Thames River. These nations include Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, Munsee Delaware Nation, and Delaware Nation at Moravian Town. In the region, there are 11 First Nation communities and a growing and diverse Indigenous urban population. We acknowledge and respect local and regional First Nations as original, contemporary, and future caretakers of this watershed, and we are committed to working alongside Indigenous peoples from across the region and Turtle Island, strengthen relationships, honor treaty rights, and improve watershed health. Okay, moving on to item 2, modifications to the agenda. As noted by Michelle, there were some changes to our agenda. So I trust board members have had time to read that. So at this time, I'll ask for a motion from the board that the board of directors amend the agenda to include Mike Wallace from the London Development Institute to section 4, presentation delegations, and that item 7, reports in camera, be moved to follow item 9, committee updates. Moved by Brian, second by Scott. Any discussion? No, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Thank you. Declarations of pecuniary interest. At this time, I will ask whether anyone has a pecuniary interest to declare. Noting that none have been declared, but at any time throughout the rest of the meeting, should the need arise, please notify the chair accordingly. All right, so moving on to section 4, presentations, delegations. And we have with us today Mr. Mike Wallace, representing the London Development Institute. And Mr. Wallace is here to speak to item 8.3, hazard mapping consultation update. So welcome, Mike. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members and staff. Thanks for having me this morning, and thanks for being on this agenda. I'm here on behalf of the London Development Institute. Represents 15 of the largest land developers in the London area. I'm here on 8.3, the hazard mapping update, and we are in support of what's being recommended in terms of moving the date from the October date to the November date for to come back to this board. And let me just say we appreciate the consultation that has happened recently with the Conservation Authority staff on this issue. Just to give you a little bit of feedback, I know it says on discussion since September 24th, so this seems like why you more time on that, but we provided our feedback after some discussion in late February. We had not received a response. We proceeded with the FOI, Freedom of Information request. We got that request, responses came back to us in July, and then the end of August, we received staff's comments to our comments. And just last week, we had a very productive, I thought, meeting between our engineering group at NPI, who we hired to do a peer review of what your engineering group put forward as part of this process. So I can assure you that we will be done our analysis of what we had based on our meeting by sort of mid-October, and a response to us so that we can put in a proper response when that 30-day clock starts. So we appreciate staff's consideration on this. We brought this forward, they've asking for it, and us to be able to respond appropriately. And I just wanted to be here, put in front of you that we're supportive of the change and that you're committed to making this next deadline a reality. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Mike. Board members, questions for Mike? Mark, go ahead, please.
Yeah, maybe just asking my question, Mr. Wallace, based on the fact that I'm from the city of Woodstock and not London, and I know everyone's got, for example, in Woodstock, we've really grown to our boundaries, and heaven forbid townships that neighboring us want to let us expand our boundaries for residential purposes if we wanted to. Give us ideas to maybe what the frustrations might be, just for all our board members to understand about residential boundaries versus the actual boundary of London and growth and how the watershed comes into that.
So I understand the fundamental reason why mapping is important to us is that once it's in the map, once the line is drawn, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to do any development within that framework. Staff have been somewhat flexible in some areas in free board, and we really appreciate that. But if we don't get this model right, and they're only studying the part of the river that's going through London proper now, and they have to do the whole watershed whole river where it goes through the watershed. So we want to make sure that the engineering and the mapping and the modeling is correct, so that when they take it to other areas, including the Woodstock area, wherever they take it, that it's accurate and supportable from my perspective. You got to like all land that the vast majority of the land is privately held that involves this. There are some public lands, of course, But the impact that the mapping can have on what is developable and what is significant and can be significant based on where it is and how wide it is and what the shape of the river is, whether it's got banks, no banks, you know, those kinds of. So it's a fundamental piece to us, and that's why we're doing this peer review. It's not like our LDI members have a lot of land that's being affected directly by the London portion of this. If we don't get this right, it could affect property that all along there that they may or may not have ownership of. So we just want to make sure we're all on the same page, that we have a credible model that can be applied across the whole river area.
Thank you. Any other questions? Jim, go ahead, please.
Good morning, and thank you for your presentation. My question really, I'm just thinking that, for example, say you, in the city of London being our largest city in our watershed, and say there's land earmarked for residential currently, not developed yet. Is it possible that with the new mapping, you could maybe lose 20 or 30% of that? Or more, or?
Well, that's a very good question. We haven't seen the map yet until the modeling is done, but it has potential to take up a fair amount. And not everywhere. It actually could go down in some areas, like technically it could. You're hitting it right on the nose why we're concerned, why we're doing a peer review, and why it's important to the industry, people who actually own stuff, that this is accurate and defendable, and so that they understand where their building envelope will be for their future developments. But it could be significant because it is an update and a change to what's there now, because they bought those properties with understanding where the lines are now and what the opportunity is now, and that changes significantly. That's a issue for us.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Tom, go ahead, please.
Yeah, like to the previous point, isn't that why there was a consideration for the expansion of the urban boundary to compensate for potential loss in the Dingman Creek area? Like, I'm not a city of London councillor, but hasn't that been?
You're obviously paying attention. So what they've done on the urban growth boundary discussion, which is in full force, full discussion, going back to the October 1st. Part of the land needs assessment determining they removed the Dingman lands that are in the screening area now as undevelopable because the screen hasn't covered off at this point. It doesn't mean that that line doesn't necessarily change eventually, but you can't count on it to change. So they removed it as part of the piece. So they came up through the Planning Act's math, so planners math, there's about 1,465 new hectares for the next 30 years, and it excludes the Dingman area that's currently in the screening area.
Well, Tom?
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, I think like when this issue has been discussed previously, I think we've talked somewhat about the Mud Creek example, and that I think the challenge is like, again, the engineering perspective versus the planning perspective, and that we need to have like a firm line for that peak flood area, but and in terms of our flooding responsibilities, but there could be an engineering component, I think, as might be someone's perspective who builds things for a living, that there is a mechanism available to do that in the future if the parties can come to some conclusion.
That's exactly why we hired a third-party MTE engineering firm who have familiarity with the work here at the conservation area, not necessarily London, but through the watershed. So it is a technical analysis we're doing on this piece, so that we think there are solutions, and some of, like the Mud Creek example, I think there have been movement on both sides on finding a solution for the Mud Creek development. That's what we're hoping for out of this process.
Anything further? Don't see anything. Yes, so thanks, Mike, for making your presentation and providing comments and perspective on behalf of London Development Institute. Thanks to the board members for their questions. I can say that in my discussions with Tracy Annett, our general manager, the authority is very committed to this process. Staff are working diligently, as you say, to go through those details and ensure the accuracy is there. And also to make sure that the legislated requirements from the province are upheld in terms of identifying hazards and complying with the legislative and regulatory requirements for hazard protection. So it's an ongoing process. There's lots of many moving parts, and we look forward to continued dialogue and cooperation with LDI, as well as all of the other participants at the table. Thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Moving on to item 5, administrative business. 5.1, approval of the minutes of the previous meeting from August 26, 2025. Trust that all board members have had a chance to go over that. Were there any errors or omissions identified by the board members or staff in that regard? See any? So looking for a motion that the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority Board of Directors approve the Board of Directors minutes dated August 26, 2025. Moved by Mark, seconded by George. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Business arising from the minutes. None noted from the chair's perspective. Correspondence, none has been received for this meeting. So moving to section 6, reports for consideration. 6.1, we have the 2026 draft budget request, and a response has been prepared by staff to that request. So I will look to Christine to present that. There you are, back there.
So hopefully you've read the report. Morning, everybody. So we
Feel free to come up to the front, Christine, if you like.
wanted to prepare a really quick summary of what the preliminary draft budget implied for the City of London as a result of their request earlier in the spring. So we have total numbers on that little wee table that says, at the moment, we think the City of London's general levy will be $138,000 less than what we told them it would be years back, 2023. That number is actually higher than the 1.5% that the mayor requested. But we have confirmed to the city finance staff that we can go with 1.5%. We're happy with that right now because our budget is still in preparation. So that's my report to you, and a draft that Dean can send on to the mayor if he wants to do that before Tracy's back. Were there any other questions about what was in here, about the 1.5%?
Board members, questions for Tracy, Paul, or for Christine, Paul?
Yeah, I have 3 questions actually on this report. I want to thank Christine for the detailed response she emailed me yesterday to the questions that I had sent her. The reason I'm asking these questions is that it's challenging to explain to municipalities how the big levy is developed, how we come up with those numbers, and then how that levy is divided out into the individual levies, because there's so many factors that go into it. It's even more difficult to explain when you start talking about percentages increase and percentages decreases, because they vary from municipality to municipality, again, for a variety of reasons. And my concern is that we have a potential public relations problem here. If other municipalities hear that the city of London's getting a 1.5% reduction, and then they get a bill for an increase, and we need, and the perception, I think, would be that the city of London is getting preferential treatment. And I think, especially as board members representing those municipalities, we have a responsibility to understand that this is an apples and oranges situation, and that we're not preferring London over the rest of the municipalities because they ask or because they're bigger. So the three questions kind of in my own mind is how do we explain to others what this 1.5% means? So my first question to Christine was, is the City of London the only municipality in the Upper Thames watershed that uses multi-year operating budgeting and receives levy forecasts of 3 or 4 years ahead?
They're the only member municipality that receives a forecast 3 or 4 years ahead, because they have this 4-year budget process where they actually approve a block of 4 years spending all at once. So they come to us and say, what's your levy going to be to us? And in the spring, can you make that levy lower than you thought it was going to be? So when we submitted in 2023 our 4-year forecast, we submitted it only to the City of London, only based on historical experience with the City of London, only forecasting what we thought we would be doing for the City of London in terms of capital spending as well. And then they take that and they spread it out and do their own thing with those figures. So today, all we're talking about is saying, we thought the City of London's levy was going to be this 3 years ago. We're going through our budget process, planning for 2026. Now we think the levy is going to be here for everybody. Is that 1.5% less for the city? Yeah, it looks to be. In fact, it looks to be a little bit more, but we're not done yet. So that's all we're doing. We're saying, yeah, we think our levy is going to be a little bit less than we thought it was going to be 3 years back. But what we didn't do 3 years back was figure out what everybody else's levy was going to be. We could go back now and determine what that figure would have been based on what we pegged the cities. But even that number was flaky because the CVA, the MCVA changes every year. That number was based on 2023 MCVA. And it's now lower for the city. So part of the decrease is in fact due to the MCVA being lower for London now than it was 10 years ago. It's been steadily going down. And the smaller municipalities, the rural municipalities, have been taking a larger percent of our total levy over the last 10 years, slightly larger. But they're the only ones who do this 4-year block of approval.
My second question is, since the 1.5% levy reduction is based on a forecast made in 2023 rather than actual 2025 levy, will other municipalities be receiving a similar reduction in their 2026 levy?
Yeah, everyone shares. Because whatever that total number is, 10, 11, $12 million, we simply lay on the MCVA figures that equals 100%, and we say, you get this much, you get this much. Everybody shares in whatever that their part of the total levy is going to be. So we only set a total levy. We don't actually set each municipality's levy. We just set that total number based on what our budget tells us we need for levy, and we spread it around according to the provincial.
So after we set the levy, it's simple math.
Well,
Not simple.
Yes.
Math.
Six decimal. But yes, it is. It's just, the MCBA is just the distribution of the team. We think about just that total number generally.
No, I said I had three, but Christine's already.
Covered them all.
Thanks. I appreciate the information.
Any other questions? So we're gonna be sending out communications along with the budget that we're preparing. We're starting to work on that. So what you mentioned about perception of London having a decrease, and do the rest of us get it too? We can address that as well.
Anne, I believe you had a question. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pretty sure it's very similar to the previous question, but I did want to make sure that the reduction is not creating any negative impact to other municipalities. And the answer, I'm assuming, is that we all share in the amount. I know at the city we do a 4-year budget, but we do annual updates every year as well, and that's what we're going to be doing in the fall with the 2026 budget. But I just want to make sure that there's no negative impacts to other municipalities. Is my first question.
Christine, go ahead.
Through the chair, there wouldn't be, if we can commit to the city to that number is going to be slightly lower, or total levy is going to be lower, and the cities will therefore be lower. Everyone else will enjoy that slightly lower level of levy. That's what our preliminary draft budget had in October. We'll see. And it's still needs.
Good to know. I just want to sort of give my thanks to staff for coming up, and I'm sure it's not easy going through all these figures, but coming up with some savings for the city. I know our budget is approved in February. We still have a ways to go, but reading the report, I'm pretty sure staff is confident in these numbers. And once again, many thanks.
Thanks, Anna. Anything else from board members? Questions, comments on this item? I guess it's, as chair, the observation and that I have, and Christine has, I think, nailed it squarely on the head. It's a function of the value assessment brief for the member municipalities. Kind of like the flood modeling that we were talking about earlier, those input numbers change from one year to the next, so it's a moving target. And to Paul's comment, it's math. So if everyone gets familiar with the process, gets familiar with the math, there's a greater understanding of how these numbers are determined. And it goes back to Christine's point about, and Paul's comment about a communication piece that needs to follow. Realizing that member municipalities are always focused on budgets and numbers and trying to get ahead of the curve on expenses and revenues. It's a yearly communications piece that needs to happen again and again, just as a refresher and a reminder of how these numbers are figured out. So thanks to Christine and staff for producing this report that we can share with the City of London, to Budget Chair Pelosa and Mayor Morgan, but also use that as a springboard to explain the budgeting process to the rest of our member municipalities. So with that, I'll look for a mover and a seconder, that the Board of Directors direct staff to provide the attached information to the Mayor of London, Josh Morgan, and Budget Chair Elizabeth Pelosa. Mover and seconder, moved by Paul, second by Scotty. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you. Right. Item 8, reports. Reports for information. The first one is administration and enforcement, the section 28 status report. Authored by Joe Gordon, our regulations coordinator. He's not here today. He's away at Conservation University. So I'll turn to Jenna to make the presentation.
I'm happy to take any questions. I don't know that I have much to speak to with respect to the report. I know there was some questions from members about clearances. I know we spoke about clearances at one of our past meetings recently. And just that the importance of clearances the number of clearances can seem high. But we report on those numbers because it is work that staff are doing, and often individuals are coming forward for a permit. So they're coming forward and contacting our office about a permit application. And through kind of discussion and conversation with staff, we can kind of guide development to be located outside of regulated areas or hazard lands. And therefore no permit would be required. And in that case, we issue a clearance. So it's often kind of a good news item, and it can require a significant amount of staff time. So it's one of the reasons why we comment on it. It's a little bit more common in our rural areas where lot sizes tend to be larger. So the idea and concept of being able to kind of locate somewhere else is easier in rural areas than it is for urban centers. But that's the reason why we comment on clearances. I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks, Jenna. Questions from board members? I'll go ahead.
Yeah, I asked Joe about the clearances because it kind of jumped out at me that there was 222 clearances as opposed to 133 permits issued so far this year. And we got back to me, and I appreciate that. But I just wondered, we're always talking about, you know, policies and procedure updates to make things smoother and more efficient for not only our staff, but for the people that are applying. Are we seeing an increase in clearances relative to permits over the last few years because of changes we made, because of changes the provinces mandated? And if so, what impact is that? Is there a lot less work to a site clearance than going through the permit process?
I think it depends. Sometimes an individual will contact us because their property is regulated and it's quite clear, maybe only a corner of the property is regulated. And so all the development is planned clearly outside of the regulated area. And in that case, it's a very quick, this is just a clearance. And often that information is required by the building department. So someone's come forward for a building permit, and the building department takes a look at the mapping, sees that the property is regulated, and then they forward that person on to our office to say, you need to talk to the Conservation Authority, you need a permit. So usually it's a bit of an administrative piece to kind of just satisfy the building department that they've come and spoken to us and they don't need a permit. And in some cases, it can be very quick. And in other cases, as I said, it can require a significant amount of staff time. So someone may come forward with a full building proposal within a regulated area that would require a permit, and through kind of discussions and depending on what options may be available, it may be more feasible and cost effective for the person to locate outside of the regulated area where we could end up issuing a clearance.
Thank you.
Any follow-up, Paul?
No, that's good. I just was wondering, you know, the difference and the workload impact, because we are always talking about updating things.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Looking to the members online. See any? Okay. With that, looking for a mover and a seconder, that the board of directors receive this report for information. By Jean, second by Tom. Any further discussion? If not, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It's carried. Thank you. Moving on to 8.2 project status updates. Our list of past and future tasks are provided there for us. Any questions for staff on that report? See any? If not, looking for a mover and seconder, that the board of directors receives this report for information. Moved by Hugh, second by, Peter. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, it's carried. Thank you. 8.3, hazard mapping consultation update. Jointly authored by Aaron Dolmage and, Jenna. Jenna, please, provide us with your report on this.
Thanks, through the chair. So at the August meeting, we had another update report about the hazard mapping consultation, specifically about the regulated area mapping through the City of London along the Thames River. And in that report, we'd outlined a timeline for finalizing that mapping, which was that we would be posting kind of the final mapping in September, and it would be on the board agenda at our October meeting, after which the mapping would then be kind of finalized and posted publicly and sent to our municipalities, or in this case, just the City of London. And as you heard from our delegation earlier, that timing has been postponed by a month. So our regulation requires a public notification at least 30 days in advance of the mapping being on a board agenda. So that's the way the regulation reads. So it's our intention now that we will be posting in October sometime, kind of the final mapping and information on our engagement website. And then that will be on the November agenda, after which the maps will be finalized and posted publicly. And I guess kind of further to the discussion that we had after our delegation report, I would just sort of point out or add that natural hazard management in Ontario, the provincial direction is to locate hazards and avoid them. And what we know about particularly our floodplain mapping is that our information is very dated, and that we have much better data, technology, and information available to us now to more precisely identify where those hazards are. And so it's not really about trying to take land away from potential development. It's about, we have so much better data and information that we can more accurately identify those lands. As it was noted by our delegate, sometimes that means expansions and sometimes that means reductions. So it's not always that the lines are expanding. In some cases, it has been reduced. And I think, I think it's been quite a lengthy process, and there's been a lot of interest, particularly in our flood modeling piece. And so I think we've done a lot of consultation on this, and I think delaying an extra month is a good thing. We just want to make sure all of our interested parties that have an interest in this are satisfied with the mapping before we move forward with finalizing it. And I guess just another further point to kind of the discussion about Mud Creek, in areas where we know development already exists in hazard lands. Our policies are generally prohibitive, but we are permissive in a lot of ways. We allow additions, we allow accessory structures, we allow for reconstruction. So there's a lot of permissive pieces. And then in areas where we know there's existing development, there's other options too, right? Like Mud Creek, and looking at 2 zones and applying slightly more permissive policies where it may be slightly lower risk. So still located in a hazard land, but slightly lower risk. So those are all options that are being explored, particularly with the City of London through Digman or parts of Digman, and as the board already knows, in Mud Creek. So I think that's all.
Thanks, Jenna. Board members, questions for Jenna on this report, this update? Who's online? Anything? Jim, go ahead, please.
Thank you. So through the chair to Jenna. So I agree with what you said, and so from what I'm hearing is that because they currently are old, there might have been infrastructure put in place to mitigate some of the flooding, which might have an impact on new modeling. Is that right? As flood walls or different things that might, I guess that's my question.
You want to speak to this, Chris?
Sure, I guess there is infrastructure in place to mitigate flooding for existing development. You mentioned flood walls, dikes, that sort of thing. That does not remove the development from the hazard, though. The hazard is still identified in that particular area. So I don't think the two are as closely related as you're suggesting.
I mean, I think there is infrastructure that impacts the impact of flooding, like culverts and bridges. So when we see those types of infrastructure being replaced, often a culvert or a bridge can be a pinch point, where flooding is increased upstream of that pinch point. But if that infrastructure is replaced and upsized, then that pinch point no longer exists, right? But then you have to look at what the downstream impacts are, right? So you've kind of mitigated some of the impacts of flooding upstream of the pinch point. But then you have to also look at how that impacts your increasing flows downstream. So how does that impact flooding downstream?
Thank you. You've answered my question. So I guess my other question really was with the delay. So all the member municipalities, you'll have talked with staff there. I mean, I just want to make sure that everybody's really aware of what the impact of the new mapping will have on their municipalities.
Yeah, so our consultation to this point has really just been focused in the city of London. But it is our intention to start consultation on the rest of the Thames River through our watershed in 2026. So in the new year, we intend to be going out in our other member municipalities and doing the same, following the same kind of consultation process that we followed within the city of London. So we are planning a day for our other municipal partners to come to our office before the end of the year. So I think we're looking at an early November date right now, where we're inviting them to come, and we'll be giving presentation about the mapping updates, as well as our policy updates to give them some information and about what's ahead, and kind of get that consultation piece rolling in our other municipalities as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important, but I think each municipality is the first question I'm going to ask is, what is the impact on my municipality? So I think,
Yeah.
Those are quick. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone else? Tom, go ahead, please.
Well, I just want to thank staff for this report, and I think I've kind of come around 360. I know I wanted the map a lot quicker, maybe a year ago, but I think that doing this in a very collaborative way, a very communicative way, I think sets a good precedent for all of our member municipalities. And I'd just like to applaud staff on those efforts.
Thanks, Tom. Paul, go ahead.
I apologize. I just thought of this question, Jen, and you mentioned about the next stage. How long does it take to get this much done? And how long is the expected timeline to do the same amount of work? I think it was from Piddock through to the city limits of London. Is that a year or 2 years, or how long does this process take? Because it seems we've had lots of reports because there's a tremendous amount of work involved.
So when we started, so our flood modeling has been all completed for the Thames River, and so has the peer review piece. So that's what has really taken the majority of the time is updating the modeling work and then going through the peer review process. And so now we're into the consultation phase, and we just started with the small kind of section through the city of London. But the other parts of the Thames River are ready to go. So we just really need to kind of get the ball rolling with consultation, but there aren't really any other steps that are required. So I think, and I don't know if Erin, you want to speak to this at all, but we've got kind of a consultation plan in place. And so in the new year, we'll start rolling out consultation. I think we'll likely plan to stay flexible depending on what the consultation brings and what the feedback is. I think we had certainly intended that the mapping along the Thames River through the city of London would not take a full year the way it has. But here we are. So we'll just have to see where the consultation goes in our other municipalities and see how much feedback we get and how quickly we can move forward with that.
The next stage is going to be quicker because
I
The
expect-
groundwork has
expect
been
it will.
done.
I expect it will, and I think we've ironed out a lot of kinks. We've definitely learned some lessons through the consultation through the City of London. So I anticipate that the next phases of consultation will run more smoothly and efficiently and be quicker.
So London was kind of the prototype. To put it in full gear.
Thanks, Paul. Any other questions or comments? Last call. All right, seeing none, the recommendation that the Board of Directors receives this report for information. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by you, second by Jim. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just to, this is why it's so, obviously this is a very important update to do because you need that data, first of all. There is often the perception that conservation authorities don't allow housing, but really our mandate is not housing at all. It's protect the environment as stated. So we have to make sure it's kind of the other way around. So we have to make sure that that land is being protected, that we're given the responsibility by the province to protect it. So we have to identify those lands that need to be protected so we can say whether they should be protected at all. Of course, those exercises that are done, such as this, have consequences, both positive, negative, depending on who that person is that is affected by it. That being said, having that data is certainty in a world of uncertainty. That's something that's probably very welcome on all sides. It's just the way that dice rolls, whether it's positive, negative, the person that it affects. That being said, there is examples of Brampton for the case. They just received large amounts of funding to put infrastructure in that would alleviate flood concerns and open up larger areas for housing. That's another conversation after the fact of you first have to identify the hazard, and then that's a political decision to say whether, okay, that investment is worth it or not. And usually that's probably funded by the province and given approval by the province to be able to do. But at least this will provide much more certainty about our mandate and what we have to do going forward, rather than where we are right now with the current data, just because of technology and everything else. I'm always amazed if you've seen the screenshots of the new modeling, like the how detailed and everything is, you know, it's way better than just a paper drawn map for sure. So I think this will, once the process is done, it will provide a lot more clarity for everyone. There will be winners and losers but at the end of the day, there'll be clarity there and be hopefully able to move forward in a better direction.
Thanks, Brian. Any other further discussion before we call the vote? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It's carried. Thank you. And thanks, Jen and staff, for that update. Okay, item 8.4, Thames River Current, September edition. Lots of excellent information in the September edition. I encourage everyone to take some time to read it. Information on the renovations at the Watson Porter Pavilion, education, communications, grade 2 children river safety program. It's now underway. Good article there about the river and reservoir depth and measurements, kind of ties in with our discussions about hazard identification and flood modeling. An item on the Public Health Ontario's new water testing portal toolkit. Landowner stewardship, interesting article there about protecting the turtles. There's a pamphlet online that's free download for anyone interested. Of note, the fall tree power sales are about to commence. Perth South, September the 27th. St. Mary's, October the 4th, and also Luke and Biddulph, October the 4th. So encourage people in those municipalities to participate. Also in the current summer event highlights, article about the low water level advisory, also freshwater mussels survey and more programming on the turtles, and upcoming community events calendar. So an excellent read for anyone that would like to partake. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, with reference to the low water, there's a no wake ruling now in Piddock Conservation Area or Piddock Lake. Just want to know if Mr. Tasker's got any comments that, do you gauge that from year to year? Is this early for saying a no wake, or is it about the time it usually happens from year to year? And I'm thinking, obviously, it's been a dry summer.
If I may respond to this, yeah, yes, it's been dry. Level 1 drought was issued, but the levels in Piddock were, when that was put out, very close to seasonal levels. I can't comment specifically on when they closed that particular launch ramp historically, but the levels are where they normally are that time of year. So you could draw your own conclusions there, I expect. And we've not had a problem keeping the two flow augmentation reservoirs very close to their seasonal levels, even with the dry weather.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Anything further on this item? Jim?
Yeah, thank you. When I was reading through the newsletter there, I was very intrigued with the freshwater with the mussels. And I haven't mentioned to our staff yet after I'd read it, but in the quarry in St. Mary's and the swimming quarry, it's been a real issue this year with the number of the mussels have been really increasing, and the number of cut feet, et cetera, along the edges on the rocks and whatnot. So if you haven't heard from somebody in staff, that somebody will be probably get in touch with you to try and, help out with the mussel problem there.
Okay, thanks, Jim. I don't know if staff has any reaction to that comment or not, or maybe follow up with Jim afterwards. Tatiana, go ahead.
Through the chair, I can talk to our aquatic biologist about it and follow up with you.
Thank you.
Anything further? All right, board members, anything else on this item? Okay, seeing none, then recommendation that the board of directors receives this report for information. Moved by Scotty, second by Anna. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, it's carried. Thank you. Section 9, reports committee update, 9.1. Finance and Audit Committee meeting. There will be a Finance and Audit Committee meeting commencing on the conclusion of today's meeting. It says 11:30 here, but we might be bumping that up a little bit pending the completion of this meeting. 9.2, hearing committee. The hearing committee met after the August 26th board meeting. Minutes were approved and no other business was discussed at that time. All right, so moving into section 7, reports in camera. Let's find my here. Time is 10:21. Can't find it. So looking for yeah, there we go. Looking for a mover and seconder that the board of directors adjourn to closed session in camera in accordance with section C12 of the UTRCA administrative bylaw to discuss matters involving advice that is subject to lawyer-client privilege related to litigation. Moved by Jean, seconded by Skylar. All those in favor? That's carried. And we will now enter into
That way you just double check for me. We're back on. Yeah.
great.
Oh, wow. Okay, we're back.
All right, we are back into open session again at 11:12. We had a closed session under section 7.1. And coming out of closed, the board discussed matters involving advice that is subject to lawyer-client privilege related to litigation. And further, the board provided direction, further direction to legal counsel and staff. So with that, we will move on to the next part of our meeting. Section 10, notices of motion for next meeting. None were received prior to, but I'll ask board members that at this time, does anyone have a motion to bring to the floor for a future meeting? Checking with members online. Members present, seeing none. Okay, thank you. Section 11, chair's comments. I guess my comments, I'm going to highlight briefly what we discussed yesterday at the Conservation Ontario quarterly meeting held yesterday in Richmond Hill. There was quite a lengthy list on the agenda, but we did some important parts there that were discussed and approved by the Conservation Ontario members. The work plan for 2026 was approved. The federal pre-budget submission was submitted for information. Interesting to note that discussions earlier in our meeting with regards to the flood modeling and protection from hazards, funding for flood mapping and flood protection was highlighted in the federal pre-budget submission by Conservation Ontario. So our efforts to update our flood mapping and our flood modeling, I think it was identified by one of the members that is a first step towards identifying the hazards, which then opens the door for funding opportunities and identifying the need for funding from federal and as well as provincial sources. The 2026 Conservation Ontario budget and levy was approved. I believe our levy increase was just under 4%. There was a suggestion by one of the members yesterday that any surplus that might be realized in the budget, that be surplus money consideration be made towards using that for increased advocacy efforts with the upper levels of government. And some very good presentations, guest speakers, Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. Some very important priorities being put forward there on behalf of all the municipalities that are in the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence River area. The Climate Proof Canada initiative, a group called Quanti, based at the University of Waterloo. They're focused on hydrologic forecasting, which ties in exactly with our agenda items here today. They're using AI tools to assist with the mapping process. Very interesting presentation there, tying in the use of algorithms, continental weather station coverage, integrating the forecast systems that are used now, and then providing an operational platform that would be used to try and predict water flow using geographic data and daily weather data averaged over the catchment area that they're looking to do the modeling for. Tree planting partnership presentations by Forest Canada and Tree Canada on their ongoing efforts to plant more trees in urban and rural settings. Forest Canada, Elizabeth Jarrett made the presentation. She's the Chief Operating Officer. She was very pleased to announce that the initial goal of 50 million trees planted was achieved this year, and now the goal going forward is the 2 billion trees objective that was put forward by the federal government. So that was good news. That's basically my report on Conservation Ontario from yesterday. If anyone has more questions, I'd be happy to take those offline. But at this point, I'll turn the chair or turn over to members' comments. Any? Mark, go ahead.
Just a note for an event that board may not have heard of. It's a week from today on Tuesday, September 30th, and this time is correct, 7 a.m. The Truth and Reconciliation Sunrise Ceremony is taking place at the Piddock Conservation Area and what's still kind of traditionally called the Bluegrass area at that Piddock Park Conservation Area. So this is done in support with the UTRCA and the city of Woodstock. And what's maybe significant about this year is Mary Lou Smoke will be the guest speaker one more time. But at last year's event, which I attended, both Mary Lou Smoke and her late husband Dan Smoke were guest speakers. So with that in mind, there's actually going to be a film crew present this year at the ceremony. They'll be capturing footage of Elder Mary Lou Smoke speaking, but it's important that this footage will be helping to create a sort of a memorial for Dan Smoke, because that might have been his last public appearance before he passed away about a week later. So just letting you know about this event at Piddock Conservation Area a week from today on September 30th.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Paul, go ahead, please.
I don't want to steal Harge's thunder, and he may have something to add to this, but I was in Stratford about 3 weeks ago and drove by Lake Victoria, and it appeared at that time that the water levels were close to what they were supposed to be. So combination of efforts of people and Mother Nature rectified that situation, at least for the time being. And Harge may have more information, but I believe the Dragon Boat Festival was able to go ahead as was scheduled, and that was along with some of the other activities on the lake. That was the real big thing that there was concern about.
Yeah, if I could chime in a little bit. Yes, nature did saved us with all that rain, and everything was back to the levels that needed. And yeah, the dragon boats were a huge hit as every year. And yeah, it worked out really well. Didn't have to pump any water, nothing. It just, nature did what it does. So it was excellent.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Harge. Members, anything else? Okay, seeing none. General manager's comments. Tracy sends her regrets. She is on vacation, and I expect she'll be fully charged, up and rested and ready to dive back into the mix upon her return towards the end of the month. Jenna, did you have anything under general manager's notes?
Just that I was very appreciative to be able to attend the Conservation Ontario Council meeting with Dean yesterday. And despite the drive to Richmond Hill and back, it's post-COVID, there's so few opportunities to attend in-person meetings. And so it was a nice opportunity to go and engage with other Conservation Authority staff and directors. So that was really nice. And a couple of things that came out of the discussions from yesterday that I think are notable were lots of discussion about continued engagement with all levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal ministers, and advocating for the work that conservation authorities do, and the importance of that. And for every great comment we receive, there's always a couple that are negative too, and there's just sort of constant work to do to try and turn the messaging around and respond to people that seem dissatisfied with the work that conservation authorities are doing. And I think a lot of that negativity is focused on conservation authorities planning and permitting roles. And so lots of discussion about trying to create some more consistency in approaches and policies between conservation authorities. So some plans to kind of move forward with working collaboratively on more consistent policies and approaches.
Good. Thanks, Jenna. And thank you for stepping in to fill in the general manager's role while Tracy's on vacations. Much appreciated. With that, we come to item 14, adjournment. We've covered all of our agenda items for today, so I will call for adjournment at 11:22 a.m. Moved by Brian, second by Jim. All those in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.